Ew, gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why.
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors, it helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in one wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products.
This is a More Than Just podcast production.
Welcome to Spotcast, Season 5, Episode 9. My name is Timitra. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there, kids.
And we also have Jaime Lopez Jr. on the line in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
And Jonathan just reminded me of a bit of fact check here. This is actually Episode 9. Last week was Episode 8, even though I said it was Episode 7. No. Is that right? I'm confused.
Depends how they list it in your, particular regions. Some places we had, a combined premiere, and some we split it into 2 episodes, and so forever will the archivists argue about
exactly. Yeah, that's our story, and we're sticking to it. Yeah, we did that once on the More Than Just Code. We had 2 episodes that were Part 1 and Part 2 because we were concerned about the length of the shows, and then we just said screw it and just kept going on subsequent episodes. Let me check the Apple Podcast app because that's the one that always tells me what numbers they are. Because Apple asked us not to use numbers on the episodes. No, don't play it. Mike, stop. Mike, stop. Stop, Mike. Boy, he's obedient. How do I get to the listing on now? How do I get to the show? This is why I don't use the Apple Podcast app, because it sucks. Oh, come on. Recently updated podcast. But yeah, okay, so. Yeah, see, Apple puts a number in front of the episodes, right? Like for the seasons, so it's episode 1 grounded. See, we should have done totally. I mean, we should have done episode 1 and 2 as part 1 and part 2, shouldn't we have? Right? Bat Left or Us was number 3. Isn't it Just a Sneak? It was number 4. 3 Rings, 2 Ends, and a Moth was number 5. House of Kool-Aid Man was number 6. A Warm Welcome was number 7. That was last week's episode. Or no, 2 weeks ago. And then The Borg 101 was episode number 8. So this is episode number 9. Fact check complete. We need a fact check complete sound. That'll do it. All right. I scrolled. I thought Jaime's fact check from last week. I got scared there for a minute. All right. Anyway, we're just going to jump right into the headlines with some really, really sad news.
Yeah, this happened the day after our last episode. We got the horrible news that the longest running person to portray Batman has unfortunately died. Kevin Conroy, who was the voice of Batman and Batman in the Animated Series, Batman, the movies, animated movies, for the past 30 years, had unfortunately died last week in a shock. I don't think many people knew that he was ill. He was only 66 years old. He had a short battle with cancer, was the story. Man, I mean, he was, from 1992 onwards, that's 30 years ago, he was Batman. I've said before, but when I am reading a Batman comic, I can't help but hear Kevin Conroy's Batman voice anymore. Like, he's my Batman. As much as I've loved some of the performances over the years of different actors, on different, platforms, I just, he's my Batman, and it's so heartbreaking that he's gone so soon. On top of the television programs, which he's well known for, he did do a bunch of the animated pictures that they did over the years, based on the animated series, and then some of the later ones he even did, like the Batman Superman, Public Enemies. He did some of the Justice League stuff. But where a lot of people probably got to know him, who aren't necessarily into animation, was he did the voice of Batman in the Arkham series of video games, and they were immensely popular, and he killed it in those games. He was so good. So yeah, it's just, it's one of those people. I just cannot believe he's gone. I can't believe we're not going to hear more of his voice, but I'm at least satisfied with the fact that, he left a really indelible legacy. I think it's going to take a long time before we have another performer, voice or otherwise, who really makes such an indelible mark on that role.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, I guess you could say the same thing about Mark Hamill too, as the Joker, because most people think of him as Luke Skywalker, right? But he's made quite a name for himself in the anime world, or animation world as the Joker, right? So I'm sure there are people who just know him as that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I haven't really watched many of the animated Batmans, right? So I do recognize the voice because, of course, I've heard it a number of times, as I'm passing by kind of thing,
Yeah.
But I know what you mean about sort of being the iconic sound that you expect, right?
Yeah. And as the article, I've got one up from Variety.com, but as it points out, it was also kind of a milestone too. Kevin was openly gay. He was the first openly gay actor to play the role as well, and that's not a small milestone as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's sad to have somebody go. 66 is pretty young for that sort of thing. I did see on, of course, the outpouring on social media, because a lot of folks, as you said, thought of him as sort of like an iconic voice of Batman. And I did notice that a lot of like video player type stuff was promoting the animated series. So that's, I don't know if that's an algorithmic thing or people wanted to do that as a tribute. Either way, it was kind of nice to see that on my my smart TV home screen kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hopefully he continues to get the kind of due that he's gotten a little bit more over the past few years. I think there's definitely been more respect paid in the era of the Andy Serkises of the world, of the people who are doing, the motion capture, the voice acting, to really give them the credit they're due as performers, not just, they're not, just robots reading lines from a page of dialogue. They are performers. And Kevin was a talented one, an extremely talented one who really brought a lot of nuance and just depth to the character of Batman just using his voice, and again, it's hard with an animated series. You don't get those micro moves in people's faces and the things that really help you emote, so everything really had to be brought to life by this actor's voice, and he did it so wonderfully. I'm glad that he definitely got a little more love later on. I think there was still, even in the mid 90s, I remember when it came on, I was episode 1, day 1 on Batman the Animated Series, just because I loved that style. I loved Bruce Timm's artwork. I loved everything about that series, and still do. But I'm glad that it's sort of been pulled out of that unfortunate ghetto that so many comic characters and comic properties, animated properties, have been in and relegated to, where it's a kids show. It's the belittling, the lack of integrity that people give it because they think it's puerile or otherwise. I mean, that was not that. He elevated that into something else. He and the rest of the people who worked on it. So I'm really glad that he is. I was happy to see he got a New York Times obit. Like, this was dealt with as the same way as any other star, and he was a star, and he deserved to be treated like a star. All right. Well, we'll move on from that to this story that made me laugh this week, where Rafe Fiennes, who for some reason spells his name R-A-L-P-H but calls himself Rafe, decided that when asked at the premiere of his new movie, The Menu, when asked if he would be interested in reprising his role as Lord Voldemort, now that Warner Brothers is talking about making more Harry Potter movies, he said, of course, no question about it. He said, I would love to come back and play Voldemort again. And then he decided to take that a little further, and he went on to a spirited defense of J.K. Rowling and the controversy she's gone through. He said that
Wait, did he do it as Voldemort or did it as Ray Fiennes?
I don't know. I don't know if I could do justice to it either. J.K. Rowling has written these great books about empowerment, about young children finding themselves as human beings, he told the New York Times last month. It's about how you become a better, stronger, more morally centered human being. The verbal abuse directed her is disgusting and it's appalling. I can understand a viewpoint that might be angry at what she says about women, Fiennes continued, but it's not some obscene uber right-wing fascist. It's just a woman saying, I'm a woman and I feel I'm a woman and I want to be able to say that I'm a woman and I understand where she's coming from, even though I'm not a woman. Interesting choice. I'm sure there are people that will agree with him. I'm sure there are people who will vehemently disagree with him. But yeah, I mean, we talked about this last week, how the decision by Warner Brothers to pitch the idea of going back and doing more Harry Potter movies and also to become re-involved with J.K. Rowling was going to not be without its discussion points. And so Ray Fiennes has fired the first shot. Any thoughts on this declaration of support?
No.
For me, I think his take on it is a little bit more nuanced than some of the online rhetoric tends to be. So I can appreciate that, even if I don't necessarily sort of agree with his specific take on it. And I do kind of find it interesting that Tim broached the question of whether he was maintaining kayfabe as Voldemort, and I find that kind of amusing, given that Voldemort, the Dark Lord kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, when Voldemort's in your corner, it's all good.
Yeah, definitely. Well, especially when yeah. Never mind. I said I had no opinion. There you go. I have no opinion. But I think, by the way, just on the pronunciation, I believe that's the proper English type pronunciation.
For Ralph?
I don't know if it's Gaelic or Celtic or whatever, but I believe it is. Yeah. We'll fact check it.
All right.
How about that? We'll fact check it. I'm sure somebody's probably covered that particular subject for sure. All right. I mean, what's happening in Thanksgiving time for the American people?
I'm glad you pointed that out. So for American Thanksgiving timeframe, which that is coming up on November 24th, Disney is deciding to do some of that more cross-promotional kind of thing for its series. We've seen this sort of thing happen, certainly with, maybe not Paramount Plus. Yes, I guess Paramount Plus did some stuff with the Halo series, but when it was CBS All Access, they had, I think, the first season of Star Trek Discovery available for free on normal CBS over-the-air broadcast in anticipation of season 2 of Discovery coming out. And this is a little bit less than that for Andor, but Disney has said, you know what? We own ABC, FX, Freeform, and Hulu. So why don't we give people the first 2 episodes of Andor for free on various days and times, and see if that gets people interested, given that by the time that happens, it'd be just about wrapped up here for, in fact, we will be wrapped up with Andor. So if you enjoyed the first taste that was free, you can go sign up for Disney Plus, I think is the idea.
And it's going to be a while before we get to see the rest of it, right?
Yeah, season 2's not coming until next year at the earliest. Although I heard an interview with Tony Gilroy the other day, and he said he's in England now starting to work pre-production. So maybe we'll get it sooner than I think. But
I mean, the thing is, they're going to show the 2 episodes and then expect people to get Disney Plus as a result of that. Is that the idea?
It's a stumbling block, right? There isn't like that freemium yet. I forget where they're at with the ad tiers and stuff. Everybody's in the testing phase of that stuff. But the basic idea is you might say, yeah, I don't know if I want to pony up for Disney Plus. So they give you just a little bit free here to see, well, what do you think about this? And if you don't like it, well, whatever, just watch a couple of episodes of something for free while you're, mashing, turkey and pumpkin pie down your gullet. No harm, no foul. But if you did find it interesting, and they are betting that people have enough of an interest, then they gain some more subscribers they wouldn't have had before, right? So the try before you buy is kind of interesting here. It is a little surprising to me. Just seeing it listed out here, what Disney owns. I didn't remember Freeform used to be like ABC Family or something. And
yeah.
I kind of forgot about the FX relationship with Hulu. So nevertheless, there you go. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for ABC, FX, and Freeform going into Thanksgiving. And then for Hulu, because I guess it's just different for reasons, it's going to have stuff available from November 23rd through December 7th.
So Hulu's owned by Disney? Or these are just other places?
They have a controlling interest in it.
Yeah. When they took over Fox, they got like 2/3 of the interest, because they took their third plus Fox's third.
Because it's kind of interesting that, this sort of model of subscriptions. Because, I mean, I'm even finding that in online courses that, every now and then I stumble across a course I'd like to do, and it's like, oh, sign up for this service for $40 or $50 a month or whatever. So you can't just buy the course. So you can't just go buy Andor, because Andor is not available on iTunes or anything like that as a season.
Nope.
Yeah, so you can't just go buy it and watch it and consume it, you know. I also think it's an odd choice, because didn't they give us the first 3 episodes of Andor when it first came out on Disney?
No, they only give us the first 2.
I don't think it was 3, because I think we talked about needing 3 to sort of get the gist.
But that's the thing. That's kind of where I wanted to go with this as well. Is it's interesting that they're choosing to show the first 2, because the first 3 really are an arc. It's kind of unusual. Like, you're kind of... The whole purpose of this, we're supposed to infer, is that Andor is... I'm going to go ahead and say it. Andor is the best television program that's been on TV this year.
Oh, definitely.
It is not... Genre notwithstanding, it is the best thing I've seen on TV this entire year. They have let out there that the audiences are not as high as they would have liked on Disney Plus. So this is clearly, hey, we've got something special here. Let's put it on all our platforms. Let's try and ramp up interest in it. Let's try and make sure people can see this very special thing that we've created. But the decision to show 2 episodes when the first 3 are kind of an arc is an unusual one in my mind. If you're going to go to that length to put it out there, is the idea, hey, we'll show you the first 2 and you'll be so hooked that you'll want to know what happens in the third part? I feel like 3 would have made more sense, because then you get a satisfying conclusion that sort of springboards you into the next part of his adventure, which is the Aldhani stuff. And I think that would be more satisfying as a hook to pull you in. I'm sure there's a logical reason they must feel like this 2-episode approach is better, but I don't know that I agree.
Well, they were short episodes, if I remember correctly, right? They're like not full hours.
Double check the length, but I think they're
35
like
45 to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
If you don't include the credits and stuff.
Yeah. 41:37 is the first 2 episodes. 41 minutes and 37 minutes, respectively.
Yeah, I remember when we watched the first 2 episodes. I think we all commented on the fact that the first episode by itself wasn't, if you knew nothing about Star Wars, right? It wasn't enough to sort of get you like hooked. Like, you know, every TV show that comes out these days seems to have a really good first episode, right? To sort of get the hook baited, you know? Mm-hmm. But I felt that, and again, like while we talked about it, it was either the first 2 episodes or first 3 episodes that they dropped at first, right? And to just sort of get us into it, because like spoilers for those of you who haven't watched it, you know, the 3rd episode's where he meets Luthen, right? Mm-hmm. And then finds out, you know, where he's going to go, and it's kind of like that. I mean, I think somebody made the analogy. I don't know if it was one of us or somebody else I heard, but it's sort of like that is sort of the A New Hope kind of rewritten in a much better way than Force Awakens. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of, because that's what it is, you know, that Cassian finds out he has this future goal that, you know, with this mysterious old dude, which is kind of sort of where Luke is with Obi-Wan in A New Hope, right?
You mean like that heroes call to action kind of stuff? Yeah, I agree with you all that, like, it's a slow burn kind of show, and I agree that doing the first 3 would have been better, because it does pick up a bit more starting in 3 when he has the call to action. And to your all's point, the kind of a natural arc there of like, hey, we finished the first mini arc. Do you want to see more? Go subscribe to Disney Plus. Feels like a weird spot for them to cut it off. I'm sure there must have been a lot of boardroom meeting discussions around precisely how many they were going to give.
What do you think it would take? So I'm consistently surprised. As we talked about last week, I listen to lots of podcasts. I read a ton. So on every corner that I've gone to, I have not found anybody who's like, Andor sucks. Everybody seems to be really into it. You know, we'll talk about this week's episode later. You know, most of the episodes are better than the episode before, which is shocking. This week was a bit of a slow burn just because they were kind of setting up the finale, but it's progressively gotten better over the course of its, 10 weeks or so that it's been out. And I wonder, why it's not resonating. I wonder what it is about it that has not grabbed people. Is it the fact that...
What do you mean by not resonating? What do you mean by that?
I just think that there's a contingent of Star Wars fans, or casual Star Wars fans, I should say, not like the hardcore people are watching Star Wars no matter if it says Star Wars somewhere in it, they're going to watch it. But the casuals who have a Disney Plus or who are just sort of aware of the Star Wars universe, go see the movies sometimes, but aren't really invested in it, it doesn't seem like they are necessarily connecting with it. And is it because it's not a premier character? It's not a Skywalker. It's not a Han Solo. It's not a name brand property character.
He doesn't have the Force and doesn't wield a lightsaber. Is that why? Or
I wonder. I really do wonder what the issue is with. I mean, you know, and again, I say this with love and respect. I think Diego Luna is an incredible performer. I think he's done so much in this series, but I wouldn't say he's a name brand. I wouldn't say that he's necessarily somebody who, you know, the average person would be like, oh, I watch anything Diego Luna is in. I just wonder what's keeping people away.
I don't know. I think you got a point there, because he's a very subdued actor, like from that point of view. Like he's not the Mandalorian. Like he's not, you know, I forgot the name of the Mandalorian character or guy, but you know, Pedro Pascal. He's not like, but even in the suit, you know what I mean? Like we don't know he doesn't have to be Pedro Pascal in the suit, right? But I mean, he's very understated.
Yeah.
He's very understated as a hero. He's sort of a reluctant hero, right?
Yeah.
And we're waiting for the light to go on in his head that says, yeah, this needs to happen, because all through he's still a doubter. He's still very skeptical about the Empire and about the rebellion, right? He hasn't picked a side yet, it seems, right?
Well, it did this week, and we'll talk about that a little later on. But he did seem to see that he was doing something more of value now.
Yeah. Yeah, but what I'm saying though is like, you know, I think where the Solo movie fails to sort of get, you know, that whoever that character was, that actor was, to the point where we believe he's Harrison Ford's Han Solo, right? He, you know, that never really got off the ground. I mean, it was a great movie, and like again, it had Star Wars in the title and stuff, but it never, like Rogue One was such a good movie because it was a sort of a, even though I didn't like the fact that it had, you know, it suffers from the prequel problem, all that kind of stuff, right? But, you know, the sacrifices they all make, you know, the I am one with the Force is one with me guy, like he was amazing, you know? You know, but Diego Luna is, you know, he's, like you said, he's a really good actor. He's, you know, it's in the same way that Andy Serkis is too, but I mean, there's so much going on. There's also the, you know, Mon Mothma, there's the Luthen threads, there's the Sita and the Mothma's cousin, or I can never remember her name.
Kel, yeah.
And the house and the storekeeper, his assistant, right? You know, they're all sort of they're knights and bishops, and I don't want to say they're pawns. They're knights and bishops in this story. They're all moving the pieces across the board, kind of thing, right? And Luthen, who is, you know, I get kind of like when you go back to A New Hope, and you know, Obi-Wan says to Luke, "I've got something for you from your father," and he hands him the lightsaber. At that point in time, Luke has no idea that how far that lightsaber is going to take him, right? Or how far this is going to take, because he's still a kid, he's still a farm boy at that point, right? And in that same sense, like Diego Luna is, you know, still sort of, he's a street urchin, right? He's like a, you know, he's scrambling to stay alive, and he's not, you know, he's not going to high school, he's not going to college, he's not joining the Empire, he's not joining the army. He's basically scraping to survive, and I think trying to get him from the point of view of I'm surviving here however I can to, okay, I'm going to put all of my energies into advancing this whole mission forward. Like Luthen says, you know, like when somebody asks him what he's given up, and he just I think he leans into the person in, I think of the elevator scene, right? Yep. Last week, where he leans in and says, you know, you have no idea what I've given up. I've given up way more than you could imagine, right? Sort of,
everything,
you know, like
literally everything,
Yeah, like he's done. He's like he's all in. Like he's taken all the chips and he's pushed them across the table, right?
Yep.
Whereas Diego Luna's character, or Cassian Andor, hasn't done that yet, right? And you know, he hasn't. You know what I mean? Like you know that moment where no matter how hard he tries, you know, John Wick, you know, is just trying to get by. I'm just trying to get out, you know, or you know. Al Pacino's Godfather is just trying to get it and become legit, you know, kind of thing, right? all these sort of, you want the main character to sort of move beyond. And we're, like I said, I'm waiting for Luna to go, oh, there's a rebellion on, and I need to be a leader in it, right? Because how does he get to that point where he's like that in a Rogue One, right? He's, the first scene you see him in, dispatching the bad guy or dispatching the other guy, just sort of like, this has to get done. Let's do it, right? Not even discussing it, just does it,
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they get to that, because, and I think that's what season 2 will probably be more about, is just, it has to get him to the place where he believes in the cause enough to do the things that he's good at, which is to say, doesn't hesitate to make hard decisions, whether that's taking a life or sacrificing a life. You're right, he's not there yet.
Like Rhaenyra, right? He's like, she's not ready to fire up the dragons and go kick butt, right? Until the very last scene in the first season, right?
Yeah.
Then you get that look on her face, and now she's realized, okay, yeah, there's, she knew she was in it, right? Obviously, because she's supposedly the queen, but it didn't really become to her like, she was doing everything she could to avoid war because, she knew the prophecy and she knew what her father had told her, right? And that, that this was just going to come to pass, right? If you believe in the prophecy, right? So she doesn't have to, and fighting for the sake of dragons, just destroying everybody for the sake of destroying everybody was not a goal.
Yeah.
And in the same sense, like Luna or Diego Luna's character, Cassian Andor hasn't that fire hasn't been lit in him yet. Like you said, he's getting close. He's warming up, right?
I'll be curious to see what response, bringing it back to Jaime's article that he's pointed out here. If they're showing these on mainstream television, I'll be curious to see if there is a higher adoption. If we start to see more buzz in and on the mainstream, although. Again, go to a Rotten Tomatoes, go to a Variety, go to an Entertainment Weekly, go to a Ringer, name a pop culture website. They're all gushing over Andor. So again, I don't think it's the critics you have to convince. It seems like it's more Joe Q public that this is a special show and they just need to figure out how to get it to them. And you'd think word of mouth would do that. Maybe this is a byproduct of the work from home culture, or just sort of, where we're at with the Twitter implosion and everything else. But it's strange that this show, which is top notch, is just not getting the kind of love that it deserves.
Yeah, it's funny. We just had a informal social on one of our meetings today with I work with nerds. I work with 250 nerds, right? And the CTO said, hey, one of the best shows on TV right now is Andor. And the 4 or 5 of us who are into it were like 100%, it's the best thing out there, blah, blah, blah. And yet some people were like, oh, yeah, I got to get around looking at that one, but I got to get the TPS reports filed first, like, you know what I mean? Like, like the thing is that they don't, like, I think the average, like, we're sort of in it, right? So we're invested in it, whereas right. I don't know what it is. Like it's people have avoided it. It's like She-Hulk. Like, how many people do you think really watch She-Hulk, right? And it's funny because I was talking to some of my colleagues at work about Black Panther. Is that there's a bit of a burnout on Marvel right now, right? Like some like those of us like you and me, if it has Star Wars or Marvel on it, we'll go see it no matter what, right?
Yep.
But there's like there's been like 10 years of Marvel movies, and they're formulaic, and they do the same sort of they have the same sort of three acts kind of thing, right? And other than the fact that how far can you really advance the story if you have a formula like that, right? And what's interesting about this show is trying to get people to realize this isn't your standard Star Wars, right? This isn't your run-of-the-mill Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
That's what's good about it. It's kind of like, things like Peripheral right now, which is a fresh take, or Station 11, which is another fresh take on the whole sci-fi pandemic, kind of thing, right? But if people don't tune in, or they don't get the hook, and maybe this whole exercise here, we do A/B testing all the time in our business. I'm sure you do too. Maybe this is an A/B test for Disney, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's see, like you said, like how many people can we hook with this? How many people can convert? How many conversions can we get out of this every week? Mm-hmm. They should offer them a coupon for so much off for the first 3 months or something.
You know, I think that would be fascinating. I wonder if they'll run commercials or in and around these releases that are like, you know, continue the adventure, go here, we'll give you a free week
for 3 easy payments of.
Yeah, like I wonder if they will try and come up with some, you know, enticement deals, Black Friday deals, something else that just sort of springboards people in. Again, their adoption rate on Disney Plus has been astonishing. Like they are, you know, they're moving forward at a pace that is unprecedented in streaming. You know, it almost seems crazy at this point. Again, obviously we were like really, really early adopters, but it seems crazy at this point that there are people who are like, what's this Disney Plus you speak of? Should I spend my, you know, $10 a month on this fly-by-night service? Like, no, this is actually the deepest service on the internet right now. You should probably be on board.
That's an interesting thing too, because I mean, yeah, to me, Disney is like, you know, Coca-Cola and aspirin and Star Wars and Marvel. It's to me, it's a brand I know I can trust and I know it, you know, I can put my kids in front of it and leave them alone. At least I was until they started the streaming stuff. You know what I mean? Like Disney is always, for me, has always had, you know, it's kind of like that brand out there that it was. I mean, we used to watch the Disney Wonderful World of Color every Saturday and Sunday, right, kind of thing, right? And anything that had Disney label on it, if it was a movie in the theaters, was always going to be top notch. You know, as I grew up, right? So you're right. Maybe society has lost, you know, the sort of appeal, or Disney's lost some of the appeal that it used to have. And maybe it is a part of this whole internet culture and streaming and stuff like that. And the fact that we're not, you know, sitting with our remote in our hand or having to walk across the room to change the channel kind of thing, you know, but consuming of television and movies and stuff has changed. And especially in the last couple of years, right? Obviously, because, you know, nobody can go out and you're only getting exposed to what you know, learn from your friends, right? So,
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I say, it'll be a really fun litmus test for how this, you know, the streaming versus the traditional, you know, the delivery method. Does it matter? Is it the method or is it the product, right?
True. Yeah. Nobody's going to vote for Trump is what we all said, right?
Yes. I have never regretted those words.
Uh-huh. And I don't know why Apple's making an iPhone. I still can't figure it out. Yeah. Speaking of Apple, Jaime.
Yeah, this one is basically a follow-up to us talking about Apple's partnership with the Major League Soccer. So their new MLS Season Pass will apparently cost $14.99 per month or $99 for the whole season. Apparently, if you're an Apple TV Plus subscriber, you can get a discount. So it's, what's that discount? $12.99 per month or $79 per the season. So how long is the season? Like, is it like 12 months or?
No, it starts in spring and goes till winter.
Yeah, it's like February to October or something like that. Pretty close from like when they start to when the MLS Cup is.
So like
complete.
eight months?
Yeah, maybe 8-9 months. Yep. I wonder though, and Jaime, I think maybe you're a good one to answer this. I have waffled from time to time at the notion of getting one of the, you know, NBA All Access passes or whatever, where you can watch all the NBA, because I like the NBA enough that I would watch out of market games. I would watch, if there was a good matchup with 2 or 3 great players, I will watch that game irrespective of my local team playing. Are we there with MLS that you are like, not only do I want to watch the Sounders, but I want to watch, you know, FC New York play the Red Bulls on a Tuesday night? Like, are we there yet?
We shouldn't assume that he wants to watch the Sounders. We shouldn't assume that he wants to watch the Sounders.
No, I definitely.
Well, you're a Sounders fan, aren't you, Jaime?
Yeah, definitely. It was a down year this year, but you know, so I'm a cord cutter, so we do tend to get most of the Sounders games, but frustratingly not all of them, because there are weirdo blackout rules related to man, who is it? Is it Root Sports here? I don't know. I don't even remember. But you know, this is, you know, kind of appealing at it, like $79 for the season. We said it's like, I don't know, 8-ish months. I figure that's $10. I was like, yeah, that's not bad at all to make sure I don't miss any games. You know, the Mariners, switching sports here in baseball, had a good season. It was frustratingly difficult to, you know, acquire access to all of their games because of weird blackout stuff related to the cable TV partnership they have for their games. So, is this going to be a huge winner? I'm not sure that it will be because of Major League Soccer sort of, standing in American sports. But it's a good start to start, kickstarting the idea of getting some innovation, pushing away from the cable TV culture, and just, let us pay for our stuff. Let me be here and watch the games for the local team instead of, people who are, 3 states away getting a better experience watching their favorite team because they moved away from Seattle is just silly, right? Like, we've got internet distribution. Just let us watch.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, this one hasn't excited me yet, just because I don't feel like if I was going to sit down and watch MLS, which is not often, I would really only be interested in the Toronto club. And if I was going to watch anything beyond that, it would have to be like FC Montreal or Vancouver or something that had some resonance, or they'd have to be a great player. If you can name 5 great MLS players off the top of your head, I'll wait. But I just feel like it's not the Premier League. It's not La Liga. It's not like it's the 10th best league in the world. I'm sorry. I'm still having a tough time with this. Mm-hmm. Years later, I wrote a column back when I was a columnist about how I just did not know how they could sell MLS in North America given the quality of players they were likely to attract. And it's been almost 20 years since I wrote that piece. And I still stand behind it. I know that it has its audience. I know that it sells out. I know it does well. And I'm really impressed by it, but I don't understand it. Like, if they were like, hey, so we're going to bring like the 10th best product in anything else to your city, you'd be like, why would I care about that? But when they're like, we'll bring the 10th best level of soccer to your town, and it's going to be like nothing like the highest caliber, but it's in your town, and people would be like, where do I buy a jersey? Like, I just don't understand it at all. It's like people who get excited about the CFL. Like, I'm sorry, it's terrible. It's terrible.
For this, I'll say that success breeds success, and you don't normally have the market leader doing the innovation. So I think for the MLS perspective, they kind of have no choice but to innovate. And from the Apple standpoint, this is probably the cheaper way to innovate than trying to crack, the NFL, NHL, MLB, or NBA. So that kind of makes sense from a business standpoint. And from the MLS side, if they can start growing revenue dollars, start growing the fan base, then it might start, kickstarting their way to getting a better quality product on the field, because you can just simply buy better players, right? Mm. And so that's something to keep an eye on when it ends up happening here. And outside of MLS, you will hopefully see, MLB, NHL, NBA, and NFL say, hey, wait a minute, maybe we can be a success too, because we're already successful. Just add more money through this kind of stuff, right? These kind of partnership. I'd also be curious to see if they're going to do anything kind of unique. Like, I've watched some of Amazon Video's Thursday Night Football. They've got that this season. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they have a few different options for listening to different presentation teams. And they've got a view that is, a normal view of like what you would see just watching over the air kind of view of the game. And then you've got a almost like a fantasy football in a Madden video game inspired view that has the, they've got those tracking things in the shoulder pads and stuff that they're wearing. So you can see like, this is that specific player. Here's the route they're running right now. On the bottom bar or on the sidebar, here's the fantasy stats of like that player just gained, 5 more rushing yards. This mixed play coming up has a 72% chance of being a play action pass. They're doing all sorts of weird stat stuff related to sort of the Amazon Web Services angle of it and the stats cloud-based calculation of stuff. I'm not saying it's like a way I would constantly watch the game, but it is an innovative thing that is significantly different than, what John Madden and Pat Summerall were doing back in like the 80s and 90s. Right. Yeah, no, that's fair. Beyond that's just fair, for sure. Beyond just HD and like augmented reality logos, like the NFL game is broadcast wise hasn't moved that much, but this weirdo experiment that Amazon is doing is like at least something radically new. I'm not saying it's good, but the newness might spur other new good stuff.
Yeah.
Last item here. So we've had the, I think, teaser trailer for Sonic Prime, the CGI animated series on Netflix, starring Sonic the Hedgehog. This is the official trailer, which goes sort of deeper into showing that Sonic in the Multiverse of Madness kind of flavor to it. And the animation's looking pretty good. I'm digging the style. Looks like they spent some money. Doesn't look like a cheap cash in for a Saturday morning cartoon kind of thing. And seems reasonably family friendly for, like, you know, drawing the kiddos, but also not being, not adult friendly. So we'll see. December 15th. I'm going to assume it drops all in. I don't think I've seen any news of whether they're squeeze out the episodes or if they're just going to plop them all out.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a standard Netflix kind of deal, right?
I think so. I haven't heard anything that tells me otherwise. They do occasionally do that, and it's pretty good timing because the Sonic Frontiers video game is out, so I'm sure that's pretty good. A little bit of marketing for them going into the Christmas holidays.
Yeah.
So I can binge this because it's on Netflix, is that right?
Yep. I believe you will be able to binge it because I didn't see anything about any weird, like, oh, we're dropping the first 3 episodes, then weekly after that, or anything like that. Netflix does do some things that are not all on one day, but it's not common.
I thought we talked about this. It was going to be like based on the movie or something like that, or like the live action thing. But I guess not.
Not
this is just
this one. No.
Animated thingy. All right. Well, let's dig into the main part of the show, which is to talk about something Star Trek related. And this week we're talking about Prodigy, season 1, episode 14. 14, is it 14 or 13? We're not sure.
No, I did actually add one on to what Crave says. So
this week's episode is Crossroads, and there we go. So my before we run, I'm going to run away and do my Easter egg real quick. Was the Zindi for me?
Jonathan, what was
your elevator pitch? Oh, okay.
I will go first then. So mine was the snarky. Everybody poops the bed when trying to warn Starfleet. In parenthesis.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I had first contact between the Protostar crew and the real Janeway does not go as planned. Yeah, it's so funny because again, the whole point of this has been since they sort of figured out, Starfleet and they bought in was, oh, we need to connect with Starfleet, we need to warn them, and then they literally run. Not just one of them runs into one of them, but like multiple of them run into multiple of them, and they're like, nah, never mind. We won't bother warning you or telling you or anything like that. It was very strange. Again, and I get that that's the whole point is that they're kids and they're supposed to not necessarily know the right thing to do. And that's part of the deal. But it just felt really funny to be 13 episodes in and they've talked about the last, half of the first half of the season. And the first few episodes was, we got to warn Starfleet. We got to warn the Federation. We got to warn them. And they just like, Noom runs into Pog, Essentia runs into Gwyn, Dal meets the real Janeway, and none of them can spit it out. Like it's sad.
It feels like the equivalent of it's going to sound like a strange analogy, but bear with me here. So remember the movie American Pie, and remember specifically Jason Biggs and Shannon Elizabeth. So the entire movie, he's just like waiting, to lose his virginity, and he has his opportunity, and right on the cusp, just drops the ball at the last second. That's kind of what this episode was like for them, right? That they've been going pretty much most of the season here. We got to do Starfleet, help out Starfleet, contact Starfleet, whatever, and to have almost every one of them. I think Zero and Murph are the only two of the kiddos who don't mess up in some way to varying degrees, right? Like Rock Talks is a little bit more casual. She just like didn't notice the badge on the one person that she was desperately looking to talk to. Gwyn had almost a better interaction until her father's name gets mentioned, and Dal got pretty far until he kind of realized like, oh, that's not great, and rounding things out, Jankum Pog probably had a good opportunity too if he didn't go like, I don't know, full Tellarite. Is that like a racist thing to say? He went full Tellarite into the situation.
Yeah, it was a good episode. It was definitely, I felt, I mean, last week's episode was funny, but it wasn't really, it just kind of stood still. This one was about moving the plot forward, which I think I like a little more. And yeah, we've kind of been waiting for this moment for them to sort of actually come face to face with the real Starfleet. What's this going to mean and everything else? And man, you're right. They did kind of crap the bed on this pretty good. And there was a lot of little moments in this, because they've got like a lot of layers in here, a lot of characters, a lot of different sort of overlapping things that sort of come together. Yeah, I don't know. I can't decide what is going to make logical sense when they bring it all together. So right now, Janeway thinks that they're all thieves because they've been painted this picture from the diviner, and they've been painted this picture by what's his name, Barnabas Fricks, Barnus Fricks. Mm-hmm. They've been sort of sold this line that these are, she uses the unfortunate word at one point, savages. Oh, so I work with Indigenous people in Canada on the healthcare front, and one of the things that we've done is this cultural understanding pieces about certain terms, and savages is one of the absolute worst sort of slurs to throw out there. And at one point she says, something about these savages, and I'm like, she's referring to just them as savages because
Janeway?
Because of their actions, because of their alienness. Like, oof, it hit me the wrong way. I was like, oof, that's not a good term to be thrown around.
Now, who is she referring to, by the way, at that point?
She was referring to the Protostar crew, to the kids.
Oh, the crew. Okay.
It was like, oof, like, it's felt an awful lot like a slur.
Yeah, I was gonna say she did come across a little less Janeway for me. Like, I don't know, like, I know she was a tough captain and all that kind of stuff, but I found when she says to him, like, try and form two words and have them come out of your mouth or something like that. She says to him at one point, right? Mm-hmm. When he's stammering because he's like overwhelmed by her presence,
Yeah, and I guess the idea is she's supposed to be pissed because of Chakotay, right? She's supposed to be really worried about him. She thinks that that this is her priority. She's got to figure this out, stop these horrible people from doing what they're doing. But even when she realizes that they're children, she's still got like a bit of a snotty attitude about it. And she isn't like, oh, these kids must be misunderstood. She's like, let's shoot them out of the sky. Like, she's pretty hardcore.
That's what I mean. Like Janeway, Jaime is the big boy watcher here, but I mean, to me, that was not in character for me as far as Janeway's. I mean, even that she's an admiral and stuff, right? But vice admiral, whatever. They can't make her a full admiral. They have to make her a vice admiral, right? Because she's
well, if she becomes an admiral, then she has to do dark things, right? Didn't we establish that from previous?
Oh, it's just to go bananas.
It's the only way up.
Yeah. Well, and my one question too is like, well, the first thing I was thinking, like, if they stop the Protostar, they're just going to put themselves within range of this, thing that's going to destroy them, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That does lead to some, interesting, theories about, like, is Janeway letting her emotions with, her friendship with Chakotay get in the way? Is it caffeine deficiencies because the tea is just not as good as the coffee? Like, there is a number of things.
There's just as much caffeine in tea as there is in coffee.
It depends what she's having for both, right?
Oh, she could be having a sleepy time or something.
Herbal teas, so nothing but herbal teas for the.
Yeah, and there's some green teas and black teas that are stronger or not as strong as various roasts of coffee and beans and etc. So kind of depends.
Yeah.
I'm guessing for everyone, the best pew 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 was probably the Protostar versus the Dauntless, or did people go with the Star Wars-esque skiff battle kind of thing? I like
the speeder chase. I thought that was fun, especially because Akona. We haven't discussed the Akona of it all. Pops up again, so we see him early in the episode. The outrageous Akona makes his appearance in a third Star Trek franchise because we
I didn't. Did they mention his name at one point, or is it just when you first meet him?
When he first introduces himself, does he
have the ponytail too, or
and the eye patch that we saw in Lower Decks, right?
Oh, okay.
But
so he had that. He didn't have that because he just looked like a regular dude to me. But I didn't put two and two together that he was that guy. So.
Yeah, and it was Billy Campbell actually. It was Billy Campbell doing the voice again too, which is fun.
Right? Yeah, I did recognize that. Yeah.
Yeah. So he pops up early in the episode and then gets hauled away. And I was like, well, that's kind of a weird thing to bring him back for like a one-note joke. And then, of course, he pops back up in the skiff ride, and then he has the MacGuffin fuel that helps them get over the cliff and stuff like that. But yeah, I thought that was a fun thing. Although you're right, Jaime, I think it didn't really occur to me in the moment until we see it, like how tiny the protostar is next to the Dauntless. That was kind of a nice eye-opening moment.
Yeah. It's a definitely massive ship by comparison. And since we mentioned Okona, he was my Easter egg. Same. Longtime fans of Star Trek, the Next Generation will recognize him from that if they didn't catch him from Lower Decks and stuff.
Yep.
So can we talk about the Zindi?
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
So I mean, like the Zindi was one of these. I think that was probably the failing point of Enterprise, the TV show Enterprise. When they started, I've always said that I maintain that the war with the Zindi was to me like, it was an interesting story, but it was just badly timed based on what was going on in the world. And this is the insectoid version of the Zindi, but we've not had the Zindi in any other Star Trek, if I'm not mistaken, other than that first, the Enterprise, right? And so they just show up as like they're on a planet, and they're like the security force or whatever on this particular planet. I mean, like the Federation still hasn't made up with the Romulans, and yet they're hanging out with Zindi,
Well, maybe it seemed like this was a sort of trading outpost nexus, kind of Mos Eisley, middle of nowhere, because they've got Klingons who are there, and one of them sees the Federation badges. All right, I'm not going to mess with the Federation here, even though I was probably going to beat up this child for her really cool weapon that I saw. Right, and so there's an Okona and a whole bunch of other stuff that makes it feel like it's sort of like a melting pot kind of area, multicultural, multi-species.
Yeah. This is the Naxi station is at this place?
Yeah, I did. I had written that down as my, they said the best quote from the episode was when they're pulling up to it and they say, I think it's Zero says, Denaxi station, it's a scary place. You'll have to watch your step. And immediately I was like, you will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. It was just, it may as well have been the exact line. So I wrote it down like that because it made me laugh. But
again, like from a plot point, like how would she know that? They know that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Zero's species is supposed to be well traveled, right? Like they get around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I did really like the other quote I wrote down that I really liked was when Pog is trying to figure out how to fire up the experimental drive as they're trying to escape the Dauntless. And Dal is like, hurry up. And he turns around and he says, Captain, please shut up. Pog is trying to work. I'm like, how has no one ever told the captain to shut up before?
Yeah.
That's the thing that every person at the con or calculating trajectory or otherwise has always wanted to turn around and say to the captain, like, I'm doing my best, get off my back.
Well, Scotty was always very passive aggressive, right? Like Scotty always had that.
I know. I just love that Pog cuts to the chase. He's just like, Captain, please shut up. Like, yeah, I thought that was a nice one for the longtime fans who were like, yeah, it's definitely somebody should have said that earlier.
Like you said, it was a good episode for this series. Like, all in, right?
Yeah, it moved the plot forward, had some Easter eggs. I think it was a good episode. I did have my big question for this one was the Murph of it all, right? So we talked about how Murph had gone into sort of a chrysalis last episode. What the heck was going on with Murph, the space slug? And this episode, he hatches, I guess is the term, and he is now a biped. He's humanoid, gelatinous thing, but humanoid. So my question was, is this it? Are we going to get more of these? Is this his final form? Is this a Pokemon? What are we doing here?
Yeah, Pokemon evolution is what came to my mind, that, he might have one every season just to sort of change up his character and do something different with him.
It's good for selling toys, I guess, too, right? But, yeah, I would think like insects, because insects have 3 phases, right? Generally speaking, right? They have like a worm phase, and then they have a bug phase, and then they have like a moth butterfly kind of phase, right? And then they die. But yeah, I don't know. Again, why does it have to have 2 legs and 2 arms and a nose?
Because everything does in Star Trek. That's how it works.
Well, I was gonna say, like, even Zero has 2 arms, you know, like 1 eyeball, but 2 arms. Like, is that more efficient that way? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
Or is it just easier for kids.
You know, given that we have the lower decks crossover into the real life version of Star Trek, I wonder if they're thinking long term for what if we did the same with Prodigy? We can't have this ball of goo. We gotta find a way to make that a little cheaper and easier to have a person in a suit walking around, so we don't have to CGI as much for him.
Well, I think a blob is probably less CGI than something with arms and legs, but yeah, you're right. It does make it accessible too, right? And for the youngins, for the starters.
Where's Murph? He's gonna hatch. He's a ball again. You know? Here's his cocoon. Yeah, they can cheap it out. My quote was related to Jankum Pog talking with Okona about Warp 4. He's like, did he say 4? Oh, he thinks his ship is fast.
Yeah.
This is Warp 9.97. Yeah.
And then the other Tellarite tells him that Pog means short and, you know, minuscule or lower. And then the guy bumps into him and goes, have you lost your mom and dad?
Yeah. Yeah. Poor Jankum.
I do wonder if, for my big question was, should the show be named Progeny? Because you do have the diviner literally using that term here in reference to Gwyn, right? And it's a bunch of kids. They're treated as kiddos. And there's a weird internet rumor of what if Dal is Janeway's child in some way, shape, or form from her reptilian or amphibian tryst with Tom Paris.
Ooh, that's weird.
Ooh, right? It's like, oh, what if it's like a weirdo evolved form, and that's why his species is like the weirdo kind of thing of like not totally unknown, but also kind of not a regularly known thing either. Like the skeletons in the closet for the Janeway family.
Yeah. I wonder.
Strange.
I wonder. It'll be interesting to see how they resolve that. That's one of the mysteries that's made things interesting for me is the what is Dal?
Yep. All right, let's move on to Andor.
Yeah.
Daughters of Ferrix, Season 1, Episode 11.
So my elevator pitch. Cass tries to put prison life behind him, but some sad news sets him and several other key players on a collision course. And that news, of course, is his mom's death.
Yeah, I gotta say, I really like B as a character, the little robot.
Yeah, he's cute.
Yeah, definitely want one like that.
Yeah, you want an emotionally unstable robot?
No, I think he's kind of cool the way he just, turns and rotates and goes up and down and whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Like, what's the functionality of that other than to be a companion, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know they really do express like what his initial purpose was for, right?
Yeah. Yeah, other than to hang out with the mother.
Yeah, Marva, yeah.
But it's funny that the his I don't know if it's Andor's cousin, the big guy, he's willing to accept the sort of the instability of B and says, okay, I'll spend the night and okay, you can stay here for now, but you're gonna come home and live with me, kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
Sort of thing, yeah.
So obviously the last episode is one of the best television episodes I think I've ever seen. It would have been impossible to keep that level up. So there was nowhere to go but down with this episode. And it really was, I think, intended to be sort of table setting for what we expect to be a pretty dynamic conclusion as all eyes seem to be turning to Ferrix with Marva's funeral. Cass finds out that she's died. He's going to head back. Cyril finds out. Luthen finds out. Luthen's agents, Vel and Sinton know. Obviously, Dedra Miro finds out. So everybody's going to have their eyes on what's going to happen there. And I think we're all kind of looking for it to come to a head. I wonder if it's going to, if this is going to be the end of some of these characters or if they're all going to carry forward into season 2. Like, I wonder if this is, are we going to see any of them meet their end with this end of this season, or is everybody going to come back again?
Yeah, it's interesting that they even brought back the Scottish lieutenant or sergeant or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Into this episode.
Yeah.
He's the one that calls with the bad cell reception to our man that fill him in on the fact that, Cassian's dead and, or not Cassian's dead, Cassian's mom's dead.
Yeah.
And Bix seems to have been she's really in a bad way, eh?
Yeah, I mean, she seems pretty permanently traumatized by the torture that she's gone through. And because at one point they're bringing her back in for more questioning, and they're trying to figure out if Axis, who we know as Luthen, is Anto Krieger, right? They're trying to get her to confess. And it's one of those things where no matter what she says, they're still going to torture her again. So it's really messed up. Yeah. It's really dark. I wonder what comes of her fate in the next episode. Are we going to see her, finally really turn on Cassian? Are we going to see her die? Are we going to see her escape? I think after going what she's gone through, you kind of want to see her have a happy ending, but we know that this series is not built on happy endings. So,
yeah. For me, I chose an elevator pitch for this that I think would almost kind of work for the entire sort of series. So earlier in, this podcast episode, we were sort of discussing, it's such a great series. How come it's not setting the world on fire, even though it's a critical darling? I feel like they're covering a lot of the sort of, it's hard to call them regular people because it's, hyped up drama in a wartime, spy time kind of setting. But these are basically the sort of mostly normal people. They're not the elites, if we want to call them that, like the Skywalkers, right? Yep. So the elevator pitch I gave here that I think applies to a whole bunch of characters in this episode for various reasons is, all in all, you're just another brick in the wall. Right? I mean, it was perfect that they talked about how the people are sort of their ashes are turned into bricks, literally, for the wall. But
good point.
Luthen and Saw Gerrera and talking about Krieger is that dude is just another brick in the wall. He will die, but it's for the 30 men plus him, which was my quote. 30 men plus Krieger is sort of yep, that's just what happens. Karn and his whole, buddy thing with the other guy, they're just, cogs in the machine or bricks in the wall. Even somebody who's ostensibly more of an elite like Mon Mothma is sort of rapidly finding that she's not quite as special as she might have maybe even led herself to believe, right? She's going to have to get a little dirty to get the money across the lines. And her family is somewhat more traditional than she is herself, right? She's got the daughter with the braid ceremony that seems a little uncomfortable for her. So just across the table, a whole bunch of these people are just parts of the machine. They're just regular people. Even now, Andor, he's had these interesting, great adventures, but he's still largely just a regular dude.
Yeah, and he's not so far really been the master of his own fate. He's kind of been caught in an avalanche or caught in a landslide where it's kind of moving and he's going where it's going, right? We saw that with what happened on Ferrix. He got kind of swept up in a bigger thing than himself. And then we see him getting roped into Aldhani. And yeah, he does ultimately volunteer to be there, but he doesn't really have a lot of choice. And then he goes from there, he gets swept up and thrown into the prison. And again, he's just kind of not even controlling his fate. He's just kind of going where the flow is going. It's a nice metaphor for sort of what's happening in the Star Wars universe at this point, where, there are much bigger powers really stirring the pot, and a lot of people are just getting caught in the currents.
Yep.
So I think one of the most interesting bits of this episode was the Luthen getting caught. So he goes to the planet to meet with Saw Gerrera. They have a really good conversation. Jaime, you highlighted that, and I had that for my quote as well, where Saw basically says, we're going to go help Anto Krieger, and he's like, no, you can't do that. And he's like, why not? And then so they have this whole conversation where it really does not do good things for Saw's paranoia, where he basically says, hey, how do I know you're not the ISB? How do I know that everybody's against me? how do I know that everybody isn't turning against me? And it's just like, yeah, this is the character that we know towards the end in Rogue One. But they get to this point where, you know, finally Luthen tells him the truth. He's like, I have to sacrifice these men because I need, you know, to keep my source in place. And Saw says, you know, how do you know I won't tell him? And Luthen bluntly says, I don't. Like, I just, you know, we have to eventually get to a point where we can actually work together and trust each other in these things. And it is a leap of faith. And I thought that was really interesting for a character like Luthen. But it comes to a head, and the two of them sort of agree that, you know, Saw, I think, is as much as a loose cannon as he is, he's also a pragmatist, right? He's pragmatic about it. And he says, this is the cost of war. We're going to call this war, and you lose people in war, and you sacrifice people in war. And he's seeing the big picture, like certainly Mon Mothma can't, like a lot of other people can't at this point. And that's the game that Luthen's playing. He's playing, you know, a higher level of chess than everybody else. And Saw is like, yeah, no, you got to play that kind of game. But they come to the end of that, and he's leaving, and he gets stopped by the Imperial patrol ship. And he tries to run a little scam where he's like, you know, changes his transponder number, and he's trying to sort of get out of it. And they're like, no, we're going to pull you over anyways. And then we get to see what Luthen's really kind of made of, because he has this little like trading ship that he uses to go back and forth and run his little missions around the galaxy. And we don't really have a sense of that it's a combat ship. We just kind of thought it was a little transport shuttle until this episode, when he like launches like firing these huge like javelin darts out the back of it to trash the tractor beam on the ship. And then when the TIE fighters come for him, he activates what looks an awful lot like two crimson lightsabers at the side of his ship. And
yeah, was that him?
Yeah,
okay.
And scorches them. You know, he makes a comment earlier about Kyber, and he talks about Kyber. I wonder if that's what he's done, is he's put two Kyber crystals into the wings of his ship to make those blades come out. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was a good escape, actually. It's kind of interesting.
But I wonder,
for a slow burn
now,
show, that was the big pew 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 moment for me for this episode. Definitely.
I wonder what it means, though. This is why I sort of came back to the whole, is everybody going to make it out of this season? Luthen has, I mean, last episode had like 3 incredible speeches in one episode, but the speech that Luthen gives at the end of the episode, where he talks about how he had to make his mind a sunless place, and he had to, you know, basically cut off all access to his feelings and understand that he's basically throwing his life on the you know, sacrificial altar for the cause, and how he's given up everything, was an incredible speech, an incredible performance by Stellan Skarsgård. This week, it seemed like we see him getting just a little more desperate, and it seems like kind of foreshadowing towards him making an ultimate sacrifice. Maybe he, you know, maybe he's the one we don't see make it out of next week. I just feel like his arc feels like it might be coming to a head.
Oh, really?
Well, we know he's not alive. We know he's not alive by the time Rogue One rolls around. At least we don't see him.
How do we know that?
Well, because he's not the one. Like he's not involved in any of the planning. He's not in any of the rebel stuff. I mean, he could be somewhere else for sure,
right.
But you'd think that if he was this sort of fundamental architect of the rebellion, that he would have a place of status, and he doesn't.
Wasn't he helping Padme understand Thor at that point?
Right. Yes, that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to see like where they'll go. I don't know if he seems like such an interesting character to sort of like just lose in an episode. And again, without like, you know, dying in the arms of Andor, you know, to make again that fire igniting in Andor's eyes. You know, as I said before. There's got to be something like there's got to be something that happens on Ferrix to spark, you know, Andor's you know, emotions, right? Yeah. And I really liked Deirdre's decision to let them have the parade. Like that was a beautiful, like, you know, I mean, maybe it was telegraphed or whatever, but you know the Imperials are like, screw them, they're just peons, we're going to treat them like peons. And she's like, no, let them have their little parade, because when they do their little parade, they'll all be in one place, so we can look at them all, right?
Yep.
But it was a brilliant move, right?
Yeah, so I guess that's the fun exercise. What do you think will happen next week, and what will be satisfying as far as an ending to this really incredible season of television?
See, like in in pragmatic terms, if I'm this sort of scallywag Luthen who, or not Luthen, Andor, who's hand to mouth, surviving, doing what he can. By the way, I just got to say, I was amazed. Like, how did that suitcase full of gold plate latinum survive for like the 5 years that he was in jail or whatever? How long he was in jail for, right?
Well, he wasn't in for that long, but a while.
But he was there a while, and what was that guy still sleeping while he? Because I forget what the situation was where he put it into that apartment, or was that his apartment and then someone else is renting it when he came, or Airbnb, I guess, because that other dude that was there that was sleeping when he came back to get his money.
Yeah, I guess I guess where he was supposed to have hidden it was over top of the shower unit. And so unless somebody was particularly tall or went looking for it, they wouldn't see it up there, although it's a pretty sizable cabinet. But yeah, not only does it contain all of his the gains that he got for the Aldhani job, it's got his blaster, and it also has the manifesto, right, that he was given at the end of the Aldhani job. And that's an important thing that will probably come back around, right? Because he has this powerful tool.
MacGuffin.
Well, it isn't, though, because in this case, it's actually a thing that we know what it's going to do, right? We know that it has the power to really break things wide open.
The manifesto?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if there's a real manifesto that explains why the rebellion is just and why this needs to be, this war against the Empire needs to be fought, and we know that it can be used as a motivation to the masses to join the rebellion, it not only could it convince him to finally, find a cause that he believes in and stick with it, but it could also be used to indoctrinate others, which, potentially a powerful tool.
Right. Okay. Well, that said, I mean, if I was him, I would just sort of cut my losses and never go back. I mean, like, what's he got to go back for? She's gone, right? Maybe he's going to come back and rescue Bix or something in his mind, because that would be I think that's the only, or the big dude, his brother or whatever. But like, if he's why would he come back to Ferrix? Really, right? Maybe to get B. He's got no reason to come back to Ferrix. Now he came back for his mother in the first the third or fourth episode whenever he came back, right? No, it was it was
after the Aldhani job, right?
Yeah, the sixth episode, I guess, sixth or seventh episode.
Yeah, I think maybe it was the seventh. It was that in between episode.
Yeah, the one where he got arrested, right?
Yeah,
when he's on and because he goes back to the. I love those guys that catch them and like, where would you like to go? And he's just says to the beach, and they're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, one of those characters actually is a member of in the future is one of Saw Gerrera's crew. So it's it's a little Easter egg in there. I didn't recognize it. I just saw somebody else posting about that today. I did not recognize that character, but apparently the one who has this sort of one cybernetic eye apparently is in scenes with Saw Gerrera and Rogue One.
Another connection.
Yeah. What are you, Jaime? What do you want to see? What do you think? What do you think is going to be a satisfying ending for this first season?
That's a good question. I do think that if they want to have somebody exit the show Blaze of Glory style, I could see Luthen doing it in kind of a, I'm just another brick in the wall kind of thing. This is for the greater good. I knew everything I was going to do was, going to make things a better place for not me, because I won't be around to see it. Mm-hmm. He's had that sort of negative, pessimistic attitude around it. And I kind of wonder if that's they're setting up for.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's funny because the metaphor that they use over and over again in Rogue One is that hope is what drives a rebellion. And that's not really what we've seen in this so far, right? It's not so much about hope. It's about, sacrifice. It's about so many other things. I wonder if we will see a tonal shift at some point where it is more about, faith and trust and hope and more the rebellion that I think we have in our minds, and less just this sort of, do it till you die or do it till you're caught kind of mentality.
To take a quote from a different show, I wonder if it would work here in a different context, and that's, history remembers names, it doesn't remember blood, might sort of fit in with the idea of the hope is what sells it, but it's got to be driven with a lot of blood. I mean, a form of sacrifice, right? We have, even Mon Mothma in, Return of the Jedi. Hey, many Bothans died to get us this seemingly useful, turns out, spoilers, useless information. It was all a trap. You could make a Star Wars series about that. It would basically be a micro version of Rogue One, right? They whoever the Bothans are, they sacrificed themselves so that they could get, the secret plans to the Death Star, the new Death Star. And it turns out it was just Palpatine, like, leaving it, on a coffee room table or something.
Yeah.
with the big old top secret symbol on top of it.
It's going to say in a bag with a $sign on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, either way, I'm excited. I'm excited to see how they bring this in for a landing, and I'm heartbroken almost that it's ending, even though it's been an amazing ride. I'm like, oh God, I want more.
Yeah.
I want more.
Yeah, definitely. Right there with you. Right there with you.
Watch list?
Let's do the watch list. Alrighty. So I was, I don't know I think I saw this on a Slack channel or something like that. Somebody posted this. It's from the Internet Archive, but it's a Bernie Taupin, actually, who's, Elton John's writing partner, actually introduces the singer of this. Can I call it a singer? Singer of this cover from, I don't know, like a music awards or something like that. But the singer is none other than William Shatner, and singing or emoting maybe Rocket Man.
Oh, I've seen that.
Doesn't actually. No melody comes out of his mouth. It's all just him just with a cigarette.
Rock it, man. Yes, it's exceptional. It's exceptional, is what it is. It's a really fun watch. It's painful, but it's fun. Definitely worth a watch. I had for my watch list this week just a reminder that Rick and Morty is back after its little mini hiatus. They did a few episodes already this season, and then they took a little bit of a break. They're back on Sunday, so if you need to set your PVR or otherwise, then
it's already set.
More Rick and Morty coming this week, which is never a bad thing, and have to sit down and catch up with that at some point soon.
Oh, you haven't been watching the season?
No, it was one of the few series that myself and my sons all watched together. We had been pretty good at watching it together, but my youngest has not been in a television watching mood the last little while, so we've kind of just been waiting for him to make an appearance and say, "Sure, let's watch it." So,
yeah, I've been keeping up with it. It's an interesting season. I think they did 4 episodes, right? Yeah. 4 or 5 episodes.
Yeah.
One of them was kind of weak in my opinion, but the rest were really good. So.
Yep.
Yeah, can't wait for the rest of it. I've watched a couple of them again, like more than once, because they were just that good. Definitely. Cool. And what you got first, Jaime?
Mine is Mythic Quest Season 3. They've had a couple episodes out. They launched a couple episodes last week. By the time this podcast comes out, they'll have the 3rd episode. So that's on Apple TV Plus. So I am am I a subscriber again? No, I have the freebie. That's right. Technically a subscriber, but I pay no money at the moment. Forget why that was there. It was in my Apple Wallet thing. But nevertheless, I have access to Apple TV Plus, so I'm watching Mythic Quest. And you probably should too if you enjoyed the first 2 seasons.
That's still on my catch-up list.
Yeah. Is that out now, or?
Yes. They dropped the first 2 episodes last Friday, and then this coming Friday they'll have the 3rd episode, and I think they're just going weekly from there.
Yeah, I might go and watch that one. And The Crown is back, like I said. I think I mentioned that earlier, didn't I? Yes. No, did I? No, I think I was talking to Carol about that one. So I guess that's it for another week. And so if people want to get in touch with you, Jonathan, how would they do that?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram as @JPKNews, or on YouTube as youtube.com/@JPK.
And Jaime, people want to get in touch with you, or do they find you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevOfTheHair.
All right, my name is Timitra, TIMMITRA, on all the things, including Twitter, Instagram, Mastodon, that like that. Yeah, but Twitter's probably the best place to get a hold of me. Until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
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 You've been listening to the Spotcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter @Spotcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpotcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
Well done.
So, anything new on the Twitter exploration front from you guys this week? We've been having conversations on a regular basis about what next.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was telling you yesterday in the car that. Oh, you know what we didn't talk about? We didn't talk about.
We didn't talk about that. Yeah, we didn't. Did we do the spoiler-free discussion about Black Panther?
That was the second rule of Wakanda, right?
That's it. There's no talking about Wakanda?
Yeah. We don't talk about Wakanda. Yeah. We don't talk about Bruno, and we don't talk about Wakanda either. So, Jaime, we went and saw the
Black
Wakanda
Panther. Black Panther Wakanda Forever last night.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
It was, I thought, pretty good.
Yeah.
I think it was a really, really hard position for all involved to be in, to try and continue a franchise in the absence of its star. It was almost a Kobayashi Maru. Like, there really was not much you could do to win in this situation. But I think they did, given what they had to work with, I think they did the best that they could, and I think they did a good job of it. I think that there was enough emotional heft, there was enough good performances, there was some good pew pew pew. Like, I think it was about as good as I could have hoped for given what they had to work with. But that being said, not having the closure of an actual end or a proper end for the arc of T'Challa is still feels unsatisfying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of where I'm struggling.
Yeah, I think for me it felt a bit fan servicey in a lot of parts of it, right? I mean, like, it's, you know, the big question is, how are we going to fill the void? Was literally a question they were saying out loud, you know, throughout the whole thing. You know, they kept talking about this void of you know, the Black Panther no longer being around, right?
Yeah.
They kind of like didn't really go into sort of an exposition onto how they got to this position, other than the king was sick, sort of thing. You know, they didn't even try to go through that, you know, kind of explain what happened. Like, I mean, if you, again, I always look at this from the point of view of fresh eyes. Like, what if this is the first time I've ever seen any, you know, Marvel movie, or first time I've ever seen this franchise? Like, you know, how lost would I be, you know, without the context, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, it's you're absolutely right, Tim. This is definitely one of those ones where some of these, even after 20 plus movies, getting close to 30 movies in this Marvel continuum now, plus all the TV shows, plus, there are still parts that you could just sit down and watch, you know, or show to someone who doesn't understand what's happening in the bigger picture, all the different connective tissue, and still say this is a thing. This is not one of them. You really have to come in knowing that, you know, what has happened in the previous Black Panther movie, what has happened in the Battle of Wakanda in Avengers Infinity War. You really need to have context, or the whole thing makes no sense whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's there's some great performances. Angela Bassett was amazing. Letitia Wright is really good. The new actor whose name I would butcher. So I'm going to get Jaime to say it. Jaime, what's the name of the guy who plays Namor?
Oh, I got to look him up. Let me see. Here is...
Yeah, now you know how to pronounce his name too, John, right?
He's spelled Tenoch, and then I think the last name is Huerta. Jose Tenoch.
So this is a challenging one because he is presumably from a part of Mexico that has more of that blend. So they didn't go. So spoilers for anybody who's not followed any sort of like history of Mexico. It's a blend of Central American natives and Spaniards, right, who came across from the old world into the new world. And like myself, so I'm Jaime Lopez. There is name-wise pretty much all Spanish heritage there. But that's probably pretty true for a lot of folks that you might think of being from like Mexico. In this case, this gentleman has Huerta, which is a pretty common Spanish last name, but that first name immediately strikes me as native. So I don't know how that's properly pronounced. I think it's like Tenoch or something, like Tenochtitlan kind of thing. But that is one of those weird areas of like, did you know it's not all Gonzalez's and Lopez's kind of thing in Mexico? So I don't actually know. I'd have to see that guy say his name because it's a native name. It's kind of like what's the? Let me go find the kid from Cobra Kai.
Yeah, so I think his character in the movie is supposed to be from native to the Yucatan Peninsula, so southern Mexico, and I guess that is where they have cast this actor from.
Yeah, Solo Mariduena is one that is a little bit closer. Mariduena is a little bit closer to being that sort of native one. So I know that dude's American, but like somebody somewhere in his family tree has a name like that. Yeah, that's what I'm guessing. He's probably named after like a grandfather or something.
Yeah. Well, he was quite good as the bad guy. We talk about it, and it is just like we talk about the prequel problem. We talk about good villains make good movies, right? You have to have a compelling villain, and he actually did a pretty good job of. He's not without his points, right? He's got a fair point, and that's what makes good villains. It's the Thanos was right theory, right? There's a case to be made for what Namor in this movie is trying to do, and that makes him a really compelling character, and it makes for some compelling drama because you obviously are coming in with an embedded attachment to the Wakandans, but when they come into conflict with Namor and his people, you're like, they don't. It's not that they don't have a point, like. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's definitely worth watching. It's definitely a strong movie. I don't know that it's as strong as the initial Black Panther. There are some good twists, and there is certainly lots of good pew pew pew. Marvel doesn't make terrible movies very often, and it'll be interesting to see where they go from here, what they decide to do next, how they decide to continue with some of the things that they've done in here, some of the characters. I'll be curious to see how they continue to sort of build on this storyline that they put together. But ultimately, when you give them the grain of salt of the fact that that the option number one, which is Chadwick Boseman comes back and they have another blockbuster, is off the table, this is about as good as I think you could have hoped for. And that's saying a lot, considering, man, it must have taken them a long time to figure out how to try and do this the right way.
Interesting. In a non-spoilery way, to focus on the Namor thing, is he closer to like a Killmonger, or is he closer to like a Thanos? Philosophically, not powers-wise or anything. Trying to gauge the, hey, he's got some good points there, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a little more. He is a mutant. He is a super being, and he's a very powerful one at that. But he is definitely more of a. He's definitely more cut from both of those cloths, which is to say, we're talking about two of the best realized villains that Marvel has put out so far, right? Thanos and Killmonger were both two of the top villains they created, both because in both cases they're not entirely wrong. I think Namor is cut from that same cloth. He's not, I would say, as stoic about it as Thanos. He's more like Killmonger in that he's more impassioned and fired up about it. Like, he is a passionate believer, not a dispassionate believer like Thanos.
Cool.
But yeah, he's a good character, and it'll be interesting to see what they do now that they've introduced the concept of him and his people into the Marvel sort of landscape, where that goes, how it ties in. Obviously, there's, a lot of history between Namor and the Fantastic Four. Namor, later on in comics canon becomes an Avenger. There's a lot of different places they could go with that character. And he's always been on that sort of, he kind of marches to the beat of his own drummer, even throughout. I've read dozens and dozens of Namor comics over the years. He's always kind of been a complex character, not necessarily a good guy, not necessarily a bad guy. He does what he thinks is right, and he is willing to sort of stand behind those principles. And sometimes that puts him into conflict with the bad guys, and sometimes it puts him into conflict with the good guys. And, he doesn't see himself as this black and white character. He sees himself in this world of gray where, it's about the right decision for him and his people, and he doesn't really care who he comes into conflict about that. And that's how they portray him here. Very, very well realized, I thought. And I like, I've seen a little pushback already in some of the comics communities, just given that I don't think people are necessarily upset about the fact that he's gone from being a light-skinned character to a brown-skinned character as somebody who's, a Southern Mexican. But I do think that there are some people who weren't as wild about it being sort of more focused on Mesoamerican origins, because they do really sort of tie it into, his people were sort of, of that area, and then they found life under the sea for different reasons, which I won't go into. But there were some people who were like, well, that kind of changes the whole origin story, and it's not really the same thing as the comic books and blah, blah, blah. I gotta be honest, I don't care less. I actually found this much more fulfilling, especially because it was an interesting cultural comparison to the world that they've shown us in Wakanda. It really felt like we were seeing two sides of a coin. The Wakandans who had hid themselves in the continent of Africa, who had evolved all this technology based on their special abilities and everything else, and Tolokan, the city that Namor and his people are from, is very much feels like the same thing. It's a hidden city. It's sort of it's only had its own influences. It's kind of its own sort of little insular world, and they're both sort of taking their first steps into the outside world as a juxtaposition, as a contrast to one another. As I say, to two sides of the coin. I thought that was very, very skillfully done in a way that I don't think if they'd gone to a more traditional comics type background for him, it would have been nearly as resonant. So I think it was smart. I think it was smart and it was good. And I think I am in the credits for this movie, they say introducing this Jose Puerta Mejia. I had never seen him in anything before, but he had gravitas. He had a real presence that was, you believed that he was a nobleman. You believed that he was a leader. He definitely carried that over. And again, this is his first sort of major role. Bravo.
Very cool. Might have to see about checking that out during these holiday time periods. And if not, I believe 45 days after November 11th is Boxing Day, December 26th.
Oh, yeah? You think that's when it's coming to... that'd be an interesting development.
Well, we know it can't be sooner than that, right? Given the promises they've made. So that's when the clock starts ticking.
It did occur to me last night as we were watching it. I was thinking, I wonder what movie it will take to get Jaime to want to go back to a movie theater. What?
Oh, he still hasn't been back to the theater yet?
I haven't. What? Have I been back to a theater? Let me think about that. Is that true? Yeah, I haven't been back to a theater yet.
Since 2019, right? Or early 2020 or late 2019.
I got to think real long and hard about what the last movie I saw before the pandemic started.
Well, hopefully they come up with a new Paw Patrol or something.
Was it Spider-Man Far From Home or no? Far From Home?
I ended up seeing that one on digital.
Because that came out in that winter, I think.
Boy, I have no idea. Hopefully I have it in like Fandango tickets or something. Maybe I'll take a look at my accounts and see if I can figure it out.
But yeah, it's been quite a while, and I was thinking about that last night. I was thinking, yeah, you've definitely passed up on a few of these Marvel movies. Obviously, I haven't done a Star Wars movie in the theater for a few years, so there's not that. But I wondered in my mind as I was watching. I was thinking, this is really good. Jaime would like this. I wonder if he's going to see it. I wonder what it would take to get Jaime to be like, yeah, I'll sit in a room full of people and not sit in the comfort of my own house.
I think this year, I'm going to go visit the family in Texas. There's probably going to be something, but I'm kind of struck that there really isn't that much coming out this holiday season, theater exclusive. So Black Panther presumably will still be around. Avatar will be out.
Yeah, that's coming out on like the 13th or something, which, yeah, that'll be the big Christmas time movie, I think.
Mm-hmm. And if my mother, is any indication, Disney's really missing out on not starting up the Star Wars film hype train, because every year she asks me, is there another Star Wars movie coming out? I'm like, no, Mom, they're all going into TV right now. They haven't done any movies for a while.
Yeah, I mean, really, this winter season, I'm just taking a quick look, and it's Disney's got that Strange World coming, which looks interesting, but again, I'll totally just watch that on Disney Plus. Avatar is the big thing that's still upcoming after Black Panther. Black Adam was the big Warner Brothers release, and then you're into award season stuff, right? There's lots of award season stuff coming up in the next couple of months because everybody wants to try and get on the award train. And now that I think of it, we're almost ready for another edition of the Spock.
Well, I was just going to say the Spockies are coming up.
We did get to see before the movie. They showed us a few trailers. They showed us the trailer for Avatar again, the more fulsome trailer that we talked about last week. But they also showed us the full trailer on the IMAX screen for the Super Mario Brothers movie, which it looks pretty good on a giant screen. I got to be honest, looks pretty good.
Yeah,
kind of made.
Well, the one thing that was disappointing though was this was not shown in 3D, so we didn't get to watch the Avatar trailer in 3D. Yeah. I don't understand that. We did get to see the John Wick trailer on the IMAX screen too. Last week, Jaime, we talked about seeing John Wick in the theaters, and it looks pretty good on an IMAX size screen. I'll be honest. Yeah,
but yeah, I don't know. There's not. It's not really till next year that we start getting into more sort of eventy kind of movies. There's, obviously a ton of stuff coming next year between the Marvels of it all and Super Mario, Indiana Jones 5, although new Shazam, new John Wick, new Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the animated one, new Hunger Games, new Transformers, new Mission Impossible, new Dune, Flash. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming next year. Blue Beetle, the Meg 2. I mean, come on.
It's been a minute though, right? Since the first Meg, has it been like a decade? It feels like a while.
No, but it was definitely pre-pandemic because I was writing for Cineplex at that point. And I wrote a piece about the Meg, comparing movie shark sizes.
So this just in. Beep, 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 beep. This just in. The Star Trek Picard online auction is going on right now.
Oh, I saw that. I meant to bring that up. I saw that. It was really weird, some of the stuff that they had on offer.
So November 15th to, I got to switch this over to my Mac.
Yeah, they posted a brief article about it on StarTrek.com earlier this week, and then you click through the link, you can actually, it's just like the one we saw before where they were selling off classic collection stuff, but in this case, obviously, it's all just tied to that one series because it's finished filming, so they don't need all that stuff anymore, I guess.
It's in England, I guess, because it's all
pounds.
Oh, some Leonard Nimoy stuff. Oh, the Leonard Nimoy collection. I think we talked about that. His camera collection his wife is selling.
Mm-hmm.
Can I scroll? Oh, you can scroll through these. A 2360 Starfleet comm badge.
Yeah, those go for like a nickel, right?
Yeah. Romulan Black Ops static open sneak attack disruptor. The Guinan meeting Jean-Luc Picard costume.
There was actually a few of the props from her bar were really cool. They had like the like Saurian brandy bottles and stuff like that. Those were pretty neat.
Yeah.
Those are pretty neat.
Yeah, the 10-4 bottle, yeah.
Yeah.
7 of 9 light up phaser rifle.
Ooh.
Can't figure out how to scroll through these. Oh, you can get a case of Chateau Picard. Produit de France.
Is it just a fake bottles? Because remember last year they were actually releasing real booze bottles with that stuff.
It's a wooden crate, so I would assume it's got to have booze in it. Featured lots. Yeah, this hasn't really got much. I guess you have to hit bid now to see what's going on. We're going in. Jean-Luc Picard's current bid, $225 for his Jean-Luc Picard #1 dog collar tag.
Yes.
There you go.
$350.
Put that on your dog. Everybody knows.
$350, yeah.
Lose it in a sewer drain. Curse your luck.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Oh, the crates are just empty crates. The wine crate.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you remember last year they were selling like, I can't remember where they were from, but you could buy like actual wine with the labels and the bottles and the whole thing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You got Starfleet outfits and cool picture of Soji and Asha. Daystrom Institute ID badge.
Ooh.
Yeah, you remember last week I was talking about Daystrom, and I guess he's the guy that they named the Daystrom Institute after.
Yep. Sure. Create one killer robot and they name things after you.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't Killer Robot, it was M5. Well, I guess it's Killer Computer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they call these things stunt costumes. I guess these are the ones worn by the stunt doubles.
Yeah.
The Three Musketeers book that he read, or was reading, I guess, when he got interrupted.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. At least you wouldn't have to worry about, like, having the right look when you go to Comic-Con and stuff.
I don't think that's really accurate. Well, actually,
as a matter of fact,
the problem is that I must admit I don't know. I've never looked it up how tall some of these people actually are, but so many performers are actually like not large human beings. So you have to be really careful. Like the only wardrobe stuff that I would buy online would be Jeff Goldblum's. Like. Yeah. I'll wear his used uniforms, therefore I'd be fine fitting in them.
Was he in Star Trek?
No, he was not. But I'm sure he's got something in his repertoire that I could wear. I need the Ian Malcolm shirt open, heaving chest meme from Jurassic Park.
Yeah, Starfleet headquarters visitor badge.
Oh, that's because remember he's not. He has to go back in and try and make his case, right?
Yep. Yeah, well, he just where to get the legit stuff. It only costs like an arm and a leg, literally. Well, the bids aren't that high, really. I guess we're still 11 days away from the end of the auction, so prices will get driven up before then. Cool. All right, should we call it? What do you say?
Yep.
Sounds
Not
good.
Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea.
Yep. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right. Talk to you next week.
Yep.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.